What's up, y'all? Welcome. How May I Serve? Episode 1. This is going to be so fun. I have in front of me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 questions. Some of them are kind of close to one another, and so I may be able to just address one of these questions and that would then bleed into the other. It's kind of like the difference between Jung and Freud. Freud believed you have to bring everything up and you deal with it all, and then Jung believed you bring up one thing from the subconscious, and by addressing that one thing, you innately address multiple things. And so that's hopefully what we're going to be able to do here, because we want to be mindful of time and yet want to address these fully. And so before I get into these questions, I genuinely want to thank you for being here, for listening, for watching, whichever medium you are on, whether this is through YouTube or Spotify or however you are absorbing this content. Thank you for being here. This is the beginning of a very beautiful journey, and I am very honored to have you here with me. And why I wanted to start this was because I wanted to provide something of value to the community, and wanting to understand what people are actually going through. Because people have their own unique journeys, and yet while we all are walking our own individual path, many of us have the exact same issues, just in different variations. And so this platform, How May I Serve? May this be an avenue for all of us to really understand that we're all going through the same fucking shit, and we're not so alone. We're not as alone as we think we are. And may one person finding guidance be a light that helps shine a path for somebody else. So, with that said, we have 7 questions. The first one: how do I know when to and when not to listen to my gut? And this also relates to the second question, so I'm going to kind of blend these two. The second question is, how do you relinquish control and allow your inner wisdom to lead you? What's worked for you? And so blending these two together, how to and when not to listen to the gut, and how to release control and allow wisdom to lead you. The funny part of this is it's kind of a trick question, because the gut, your intuition, your inner wisdom, it's always speaking to you, and it's always right. It will never pull you away from your highest expression. However, it very rarely will make logical sense. But before we get into that, you have to really ask yourself, is what you're listening to your gut, your intuition, your higher wisdom? Is that even what you're listening to in the first place? Or is it your ego? Is it fear? Is it scarcity? Because the ego, the best way I've been able to distinguish between the two voices is our wisdom, our intuition, this connection of something greater than ourself is always going to be subtle. It's always going to be a whisper, a suggestion, an offering. It will never intrude, impose, and demand. Yes, there may be some moments when our intuition is calling us so strongly to something that it almost feels like a demand, and there's a place for that. But I feel generally, as of this moment in my life, and I will also real quickly preface with saying that as we grow and evolve, we have the right to change our mind on things. And so as I'm going through this process, something that I may speak on now that may ring true for me in this present moment could change. And I think we all could allow ourselves a little bit more grace. I know I can allow myself this, especially more grace on allowing change. Allowing not only ourselves, but people around us to change their mind and change opinion, because change is inevitable and it is the only constant. And if we are allowing ourselves to flow with change, greater benefit will come from that. So what I will say with that is, in this moment, that is how I view intuition, higher wisdom, this inner guidance that comes from something beyond us. It is always going to be gentle. Whereas our ego, fear, control, it's loud, it's dominant, it's intense, and it's invasive. And so when you're thinking to yourself, how do you know when to and when not to listen to your gut? You have to ask, well, what voice is calling to me to begin with? What is the energy that's associated with this this sensation. Like in my own personal history, a couple years ago, I was living in a different state. I was in a relationship, in a job, in these situations that were not in alignment with what I actually wanted. And yet, the fear of what if, no, you can't leave this job because it provides too much financial security. No, you can't leave this person because of X, Y, and Z reason. And those voices were always so much louder than what intuitively I knew, that we had to leave the job. We had to end the relationship. We had to move, not really knowing where I was going to move, but the move needed to happen. And I spent so much of my life just questioning and searching for this clarity outside of me. And I remember that, like, the first time I went down to Ecuador to drink ayahuasca, and I was with this shaman, and I was asking him, like, how do I get clarity? And he didn't really have an answer for me. Like, he told me some things, and they were helpful at the time, but ultimately, like, I was searching for a person outside of me to tell me what I needed to do. I was waiting for this external cue to guide me in the direction of where I was supposed to go, rather than taking the courage, the leap of faith to step into the unknown while I knew my intuitive answers to begin with. And as time would unravel, I always knew what I needed to do, but I was gaslighting myself into thinking that I didn't know. And so you can save yourself a lot of time by slowing down and being more inquisitive on where is this coming from, because it might not always feel clear either. Understanding the difference between fear and intuition, to some extent, is also a practice game. You will have to take action and be willing to make a mistake thinking that something was your gut, when you then look back on it and you're like, oh no, I was just acting out of fear. Oh no, that was my intuition, actually. And it's something you have to experience yourself. I can't sit here and tell you this, and this. I can give you guidance based off of what I've experienced, but to an extent, you have to go in and experience those things for yourself by testing them out and allowing yourself, right? When we said allowing ourselves the opportunity to change, we have to allow ourselves the opportunity to make mistakes. Because if we can't allow that, then we're just fucked. Like, as somebody who myself, I have limited wanting to do things like this. For example, how may I serve? Like being in front of a camera, talking, providing a platform that can be of service to people is something I wanted to do for so long. And yet I allowed fear and limitation to prevent me from doing that because I was afraid of making a mistake and looking dumb. And fuck it, dude. Fuck it. Like, I look dumb. I learn. At the end of the day, if I'm pushing the needle towards finding and discovering what my truth is, I will find it. And by the act of doing it, I am therefore living it. And that's a really, really powerful concept that I want you to understand, that by choosing to be in the present I am is what allows the thing that you want to actually be real. It's not a wishing for, it's not a striving for, it's not a desiring of. It is an embodiment of that. Even if you don't have tangible proof in front of you that the thing that you are after is there, you must be willing to suspend this external belief and to put yourself in the present state of having it, of being it. It's not even having it, it truly is being in the vibrational alignment of the thing, situation, relationship, how you want to be. You must place yourself there. So when you're asking, how do you listen to it? How do you relinquish control and allow the inner wisdom to lead you? Take chance, be willing to look stupid, and continue embodying the person who is already doing those things. The version of you that is fully in alignment with his or hers innate wisdom, intuition, higher guidance. That person already exists. They already exist. You just have to choose to be that person. There is never going to be a day when, somebody outside of you says, hey, surprise, today's the day you get to be the dude. You get to be the chick who's fucking fully aligned with their higher self. It doesn't work like that. You have to give yourself the permission to do that. And how you give yourself the permission to do that is to just be it, not question it. You have to question it to an extent of like, well, how would this person show up in this moment? And whatever comes up to you, do it. Try it out. As long as you are leading with the intention of love and of service to your highest expression and to the betterment of other people, hey dude, no fucking wrong done. And it's not going to be clean all the time. It's going to be a little messy. It might even cause some arguments. It might even cause some conflict. But as long as we are leaning into knowing that these things are of the highest truth and of love and of service, all will be well in the end. I hope that answered your questions. And we're going to move on to the next one now. Fuck, dude. This is so funny. It's so much easier to like have this type of dialect and conversation when I'm actually in front of a person, when I'm in front of a client or a friend. But just kind of riffing this off to a camera is so foreign and weird, but I'm loving this right now. So here we go. Next one. This one I was excited to get to. Do you think dogma is inherently bad? I will answer that question by saying nothing is inherently good or bad. It is until we label it such that then gives that life form what it is. And what I mean by life form is that every energy, every thought is energy. Therefore, to some extent, it is a life form because the more energy we feed it, the larger of a gravitational pull it has on us. So where it almost, to some extent, can be like a living entity. And so when we look at dogma to an extent can provide boundaries that are initially needed to provide structure. However, if we go too far down that path and you are not able to question things, that's a problem. It's a problem because anything that is of true merit can withstand the questioning act. And if you cannot question something, if you cannot come to your own individual experience of a thing, that's an issue because it shows fragility in the thing being questioned, the dogmatic viewpoint that's being held at hand. So is it inherently bad? No. Is it good? No. It provides a temporary, it's training wheels. It can provide a training structure for you to understand something, yet there must come a moment when we must challenge that structure. Ram Dass has a really good saying that he's talking about following these different paths in life. And he says that if it's a good path, if it's a good method, it will inevitably self-destruct. Meaning, you can find yourself being very curious on a specific topic, a thing. And eventually you just kind of lose interest and you go to a next thing. And then you may find yourself coming back to the thing years later. Like when I was a kid, music was my first love. And I played music for a long time. And then after high school, I fell away from it for a while. And then during COVID, it came back into my life in a different way. I started exploring different instruments. And fast forward now, 5 years later, I'm back playing the instruments that I once played when I was 13 years old, and it feels fucking awesome. But I needed to allow that method to, quote unquote, self-destruct in order for me to view it in a different way and to be able to participate with it in a different way. And so then when we look at like religion, for example, when you question authoritarian figures in religious structures, there often is a sense of like disdain towards that. You know, how can you question the word of God when we also know that there has been multiple iterations of the Bible per se, and that has been utilized to control people and to make people think that they are separate from God. Now, mind you, God is this multifaceted conversation that I fucking love, and we will have time for later because it is a bigger conversation than what we have time for right now. But I will say the dogmatic viewpoints of not being able to challenge the structured thoughts that are in place in major religious institutions is a problem. Because if you can't question something, then what is the merit of its success and its truth? And anybody who is firmly rooted in their faith will be open and happy to talk about this. And I will also say, like, I'm not trying to bash on religion. I think religion is a beautiful thing. I have religious tattoos on my body. If you've seen my right arm, I have a crescent moon and Star of Islam, the Star of David, and a cross on my arm. I love religion. I love God. And there are many people who I know who are devout Christians that are very open to being challenged to their viewpoints because they firmly believe in what they believe and they have great arguments for what they believe in. So in that context, that's beautiful. But either way, I think I'm kind of rambling now. Dogma is not inherently bad. It's viewer discretion advised and how that individual chooses to work with the material at hand. And if something is making you feel limited or restricted and less expansive, that is something that you need to question and choose what path will actually better serve me in the long run. I hope I answered that question well. We'll see. Healing the wound of being chosen. This one's really precious. And I think this one also kind of goes really well with a couple of these other ones. I'm going to read these other ones and kind of see if we can blend them all together, because the wound of being chosen stems from our childhood, and these next questions kind of relate to that. Advice on distancing yourself from toxic family relationships, boundaries with relatives, working through childhood trauma, abandonment from parents, and how that can relate to how we show up as adults. And then the last one, we'll save that one for when we're done. So those three things: the wound of being chosen, advice on distancing yourself from toxic family patterns and relationship patterns, working through childhood trauma and abandonment from parents, and how that can relate to how we show up as adults. The wound of being chosen, I definitely can relate to that. Being a kid who always felt like he didn't matter, that nobody cared what he had to say, that he didn't have a lot of friends, that he was bullied a lot, that, I was a very lonely child, and I wanted to be chosen, and I still want to be chosen. Like that, these things that we go through, like they don't go away. They're with us, but our relationship with them changes. And so that wound of being chosen, you could even argue that me right now, like the call and the desire to me wanting to have a platform to speak could to some extent also be related to, I just wanted to be chosen. I just want to be seen. So fuck it. I'm going to put on my camera and put on a microphone, and I'm going to talk about something so that people can see me. Now, mind you, that's not the main reason why I'm doing this. I'm doing this because this genuinely excites me. But there was a lot of my life and a lot of my time spent doing things to be chosen, to work through abandonment that I felt from friends and family, and childhood trauma that impacted me in a way that made me feel like I needed to perform. And there's something very interesting about the wound of being chosen tends to come from not feeling seen or not feeling adequate when we were younger. So then we feel like I need to perform and put on this show so that people can choose me, so that then I can feel enough. And the issue with that is that it's never going to be enough. That you can be chosen thousands and thousands of times over and over, but it will never feel enough, because are you choosing you? Are you the one who is choosing to, going back to what we talked about earlier, listen to your intuition, therefore choosing yourself and not listening to fear or external cueing? And by choosing yourself time and time again, you will then build the knowing, like true knowing, that you don't need to be chosen by anybody. That when people do choose you, they're people that are in alignment with your highest expression. That when you have found your chosen friends and family and relationships, that you weren't coming to them from this place of lack, that you were coming to them from a place of sovereignty, because you have time and time again chosen you. which then creates an environment for more fulfilling relationships because you're not coming at them from the wound. And how do we do that? How do we choose ourselves continuously? It's small actions taken daily, and knowing that we are going to, it's what we said earlier, it's going to be messy. It's not going to be clean. Like all of this process of shedding the old and birthing in the new is a fucking messy process. Show me one delivery of a child into the world that was a clean, easy process. Like that shit's fucking gnarly. Obviously, I would know, right? No, but like it's a gnarly fucking process giving birth to something. And it will always be a crazy process. When a star is created, the supernova, the fucking like collision of material in space exploding to give life to something is such an event. And I'm sure if we were up close and personal, it would be pretty fucking messy. So healing the wound of being chosen is done by allowing yourself the grace to make a mistake and show up again and show up again, by setting boundaries with people, knowing that they're not going to necessarily like it, but you know you need to do it, by saying no more often, and also simultaneously saying yes more often to opportunities and in situations and circumstances that genuinely excite you. You know, like, what the fuck would you be doing if you didn't have to worry about what other people were like thinking about what you were doing? What would you actually want to do? And what's preventing you from actually wanting to do that? Nothing. We put these limitations on ourselves, which when you realize that at first, it's kind of like, you kind of get angry with that. You're like, fuck, I've been holding myself back this whole time. And then once you get past that, you're liberated. Because then you're like, wow, okay, let's make some shit happen. So healing the wound of being chosen is not like a one-time done kind of process. It's a daily act. It is a devotion of choosing to show up for you. And not just the highest form of you, but the child version of you. I'm a really big proponent on inner child work, because if we don't heal and address the inner child within us, we will never be able to fully transcend into the fullness of our adulthood and into the fullness of our soul's expression. Because those early years going into these next topics, right? The advice on distancing yourself from toxic family relationships, boundaries with relatives, working through childhood trauma, abandonment from parents, and how that can relate to how we show up as adults. If you do not address your childhood, you will forever be in a place of the victim, because a child, to some extent, is a victim to a lot of these situations. They don't choose a lot of the things that happen to them. Their souls may have chosen that, but the child is not aware of that unless it is a very advanced spiritual being that understands the work that they are to do here. I will also preface real quickly before I go into this with, like, there's many different viewpoints on our soul and why things happen the way that they do. I am a believer that our souls chose the lives that we live. And I know that that's very easy to say while I am sitting in my room and I'm comfortable and I have food and clothing and that things are going pretty well for me in the, grand scheme of, like, I'm not fucking living in a box right now. Like, it's easy for me to say that that my soul chose this life, and that if I was somebody over in the Middle East who my home just got fucking blown up, or somebody who has been going through intense financial scarcity and abuse, and you know what I'm leading to. Like, there's a lot of fucked up things that happen in this world, and it's to say that somebody chose that can be very like it can almost just be like a big, like, fuck you in a way, because why would somebody want to choose that? And I don't know, but fuck, at least for me, it gives me a lot of strength to know that I chose the things. Like, my soul knows that there is a curriculum at place here for me to participate with, and that it's all a choice, right? It's not just free will, it's not just determined fate, but, like, it's a blend. that we have the free will to choose our highest timeline, our highest expression of ourselves, and that there is an infinite amount of timelines and paths and alternate realities that we could walk and we could surf, per se, right? If you know reality transurfing, you know what I'm talking about. But that it's all a choice fundamentally. But when we're young, we don't know this yet. And we do fall prey to external circumstances, to family dynamics, to situations that we just did not have any control over because we were children. And those things can deeply, severely impact the development of the individual as they age and as they grow up. And then we will then be meeting reality and life from these pains and these wounds. Nonetheless, the things that have happened to you happened. But you have a choice. Do you want to forever be a victim to reality, or do you want to be an active creator, a full participant of your life? And by doing so, that means that you take full accountability for everything. Not saying that, if you were raped, that was your fault and that you take accountability for being raped. That's horrible, and that was not your fault. However, what happened after? That's your choice. And that's really fucking hard to accept sometimes, depending on the severity of what happened. But you got to know that it is your choice on how you deal with the situations of life. And that life is just life. It is not innately good. It is not innately evil. It is just a series of circumstances and situations, and that we take these things because we're not only the ones creating our reality, everybody else in the world is creating their own reality. And there are some people in this world who want to inflict harm, and they will try to impose that on your life. And then you have the choices then to flow with it as best as you can. But regardless of the severity of the situation, you will always come out better choosing the stance of the participant than the bystander, of the hero than the victim. And how you begin to work through your childhood trauma, there's so many levels of that. Like, one is to be able to acknowledge and sit with the material fully and not numb and distract yourself from it, not numb with substances or relationships or social media or sex or even productive things. You can numb and distract yourself with quote unquote productive things like cleaning your house and focusing on your business and socializing, and like there's so many positive things that you could also do that are innately leading to you distracting yourself from actually doing the real work. And it's really interesting to like see that. And I have done that so much, where I would know that there was a thing that I needed to get to, and then I would find myself just happening to be like, oh, there's laundry I needed to start taking care of now, when really there was this other thing that I needed to do. And so there's the willingness and the courage to sit with what happened. And you might need to go to therapy. You might need to have somebody where you can talk with the material through. There's a lot of different routes on how you would go about doing that, but addressing it in an environment where you can work through the material, I would recommend doing it with another person, somebody who is experienced in working with childhood dynamics. But beyond that, like, you're still going to be the one who has to do the work. And ultimately, like, addressing childhood issues is about acceptance. You have to look at what happened and be like, well, this parent didn't give me what I needed, or this relative did this, or this thing happened, and I have to accept that. But then how do you want to move forward? And forgiveness is not a thing that is meant for them. It's a thing that's meant for you, so that you don't have to continue the poison of resentment fueling the wounds of your body and your mind and your soul. And that is a process that takes time. because when you initially start doing the work of unpacking the childhood trauma and situations you've been through, it can be very destabilizing and it can be shattering depending on the severity. And sometimes when we're healing, things will get worse before they get better. You will feel worse. It'll hurt more before it actually starts to get better, but that's not a bad thing to, and a lot of people run away from that. A lot of people run from the discomfort of healing. And they just think, oh, that trigger that I'm feeling is a bad thing and I don't want to feel that. Well, that's not the case at all. You must feel everything and be with everything in order for you to rise above it. So this one right here, though, advice on distancing yourself from toxic family relationships and boundaries with relatives. To be honest, it's just kind of doing it. And how you do that goes back to the beginning of being chosen. You have to choose you first. And going back even further than that, listening to your gut, your intuition will be very subtle. So make space in your day to slow down. Meditation is that space. If you are not meditating for at least 15 minutes a day, you are not creating stillness. And I believe truthfully that, yes, there are ways we can create a meditative practice in our daily actions through pouring coffee, through eating, through going for a walk. Those things can be meditative, but nothing trumps sitting down in silence, focusing on your breath. And yes, there are guided meditations and there are things like that, but meditation is about being with the now. And from that, you then have space to explore reality. And if you are not willing to sit with yourself alone in a room for 15 minutes at least, then how are you willing to do the work on anything else that is actually of substantial value in your life? Slow down and do less to be able to create that space so that you can see the wounds that need to be addressed with from the first place. And then from there, you can begin the practice of integrating that. And so creating the distance from toxic family relationships and setting boundaries, it really just comes down to being willing to say no when you innately feel that pull to say no from the beginning. And it's going to feel awkward at first. It's not going to feel good. Setting boundaries and establishing that no foundation can feel destabilizing at first because your nervous system is used to something entirely different. And so allowing yourself to make mistakes and it not be super clean and pretty, but knowing that you're coming from this space of I need to do what I need to do will then further that practice of listening to what your boundaries are. And if you don't even know what your boundaries are, it's okay. Start with the first thing that comes up. If you're in a dynamic that doesn't feel right for you, leave. If you're in a conversation that doesn't feel right for you, end the conversation. Be willing to listen to those little pings that come in from your body and follow where that's guiding you. And your logical mind will try to convince you otherwise. It will try to say, no, stay because you don't want to be disrespectful, or no, it's okay, it's not that big of a deal. When really, it is a big fucking deal. Really, you don't need to stay. Fuck that shit. Leave. Fuck that shit. Say the thing. Be willing to stand up for yourself and look at it as if you were standing up for that child who needed somebody to stand up for them. And you are now that person who can do that for them. So it's a big conversation working through these things, and it's something that we can evolve with as time goes on because it's not so clear cut and dry. It's multifaceted depending on the circumstances that you come from, but nonetheless, healing the wound of being chosen, distancing yourself from toxic dynamics and creating boundaries and working through childhood trauma all come down to you choosing you and making yourself a priority, and not in an egotistical way, not in a narcissistic way, but in a genuine way that you are the most important person in your world because you are all you have. Everybody else will be there, but relatives will die eventually. Friends may come and go. Intimate partners may come and go, but you are the constant of your life. So choosing you first and making sure that you are filling your cup up is the most selfless thing that you can do, because when your cup is full, you are then of value and of service to somebody else in a genuine way. So put yourself first, slow down, allow yourself for the process to be messy, because it's going to be. There's no question about that. It will be messy at first. And give yourself the grace to continue showing up and practicing every day. The last question, and we'll be done. How to choose a career path that feels fulfilling and authentic when you have a million ideas of different things you want to do and start feeling overwhelmed by it all. Slow down, do less. You know in your heart of hearts what you want in your life. Yet, through distraction, self-doubt, and also going back earlier, if you have a list of trauma and wounds and things afflicting your consciousness and your psyche to where you can't see reality clearly, and you're continuously projecting pain and insecurity and doubt onto the world, you won't really have the space to listen to what you actually want. But also at the same time, you do know what you want. I really believe we all know deep down in our heart, we know exactly what we want. We know exactly what we're here to do. But we lie to ourselves because we think that we're not worthy of it. We say to ourselves, oh, I can't do this thing. Like me doing this right now. I didn't think I could do this because I would always think of, well, who am I? Who am I to be sitting here talking this message? Oh, I'm too young to be doing this. I'm 27 and I'm like, I need to be a little older and have some more life experience before I can be talking on these things, when really, like, it's just a lie. It's an excuse for me not wanting to do something that makes me uncomfortable. You know what you want to do. And yet we live in a world right now where hustle, grinding, and duty and obligation are placed at this pedestal of what should matter, when really what should matter is what ignites your soul. Because you stepping forth into what ignites you from an authentic place, that energy is then given to the collective to add into a net positive for everybody. You living your fullest expression benefits me, because there is another person in the world who is also doing the thing that they truly want to do, and that will inspire another person to do the same thing, which will then add to that compounding effect. But when you feel like there's a million ideas and you don't really know which one to do, that rabbit hole will never really be addressed. Like there's things that I still want to do that I'm like, ooh, I wish I could do this, or I wish I could do that, but like a lot of that is just wishful thinking, and it's not actually rooted in anything like real. You know, like you got to really be with yourself and slow down. And often the thing that keeps coming up for you is the thing. And it doesn't have to be just one thing. For example, mine are music and speaking. Music, you know, I'm in the process of figuring out how exactly I will allow that to be part of my work in my life, but I will one day. I'm in the process of creating that. This right now, me speaking and creating a platform to be of service in a way that feels in alignment with me. Doing these two things have just kept coming into my brain forever, for so long. And the only thing that was preventing me from doing this was me. And then there were moments when I was like, oh, well, I could do this thing because this thing looks cool, or I could do that because that looks really cool. And yeah, there's always going to be tons of shiny shit out in the world to intrigue us and to inspire us. And that's not to say that you can't do those things later. But right now, if you're in a place where you don't feel like you have purpose, or you feel like, you know, your job situation is okay, but you want something deeper, slow down. and do less so that you can understand what it is that you actually want. Try taking things away to create space for something new to come in. If you want to find what you really want to be doing, stop scrolling on your phone and looking for it out there, because it's not going to be in there. Stop watching Netflix and YouTube and the other bullshit things that are just distracting you. Now, mind you, YouTube's not always bullshit, because if you're watching this on YouTube, thank you. But you know what I mean? Like, stop distracting yourself. Stop gaslighting yourself and slow down. Do less so that you can actually understand what it is that matters. And ask yourself, what really matters to me? And if you don't know right now, that's okay. And by putting pressure on yourself to have to figure it out isn't going to work either, because you will never mentally, logically be able to figure out what the thing is. It will just call to you innately in your heart. And if you've never had something that calls to you, that's okay too. Then continue to do what you're doing right now that you need to sustain your life, and allow yourself to still slow down and do less and open your heart. Ask and you shall receive. Ask what it is that you are meant to be doing with yourself, and you will notice there will be moments and opportunities where things will arise for you to show up for that. But you have to be aware enough to see that. And how do we be aware enough to see that? Is by doing the work that we were talking about earlier, by learning to listen to your intuition rather than listening to fear, by choosing to work through the childhood dynamics that you have been with through your whole life, and actually begin to heal them and integrate them. And then even with the dogma, like the dogmatic viewpoints that have been keeping you rigid and within a contained structure that doesn't allow any growth or expansion, question those things. Question those things and break those chains that have once bound you. Because you ultimately do have all of your answers inside of you. I'm not saying anything new here that you don't already know. I'm just giving you something to remember. Yeah. Well, that's it. That's all 7 questions. I hope this was of value to you in some way. I hope you took something from this. These are going to be happening once a week. We're releasing these on Sunday. This was a joy for me to do, and I'm very excited to keep this ball rolling and to see how it evolves. So thank you so much for being here. If you're watching this on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, do the whole thing. Let me know what your thoughts are. If you're listening to this on Spotify, I honestly don't even know what the fuck you do with Spotify. Do you like it? Do you follow it? I don't really know. I don't listen to that many fucking things on Spotify, but whatever way, medium, shape that you are listening to this on, if there's any way that you can share anything from it to enhance this platform, that would be of great value to me. So thank you for that. Thank you again for your time. I look forward to talking with you soon. Much love, y'all.